Robert G. Bob Pitman Jr. was born in Blountstown, Florida in 1911 and moved to Apopka in 1917. He attended Ocoee High School, where his father was principal for grades 9 through 11. He graduated from Georgia Military Academy in 1929, receiving Outstanding Cadet of the Year honors, and went on to the University of Florida, where he graduated with an Associate Bachelor of Education in 1933. Shortly after graduation, he married Catherine Sis Sherrard, and together they had 3 children, Robert, John, and Pam. Bob had an unbelievable athletic career in football, baseball, and coaching. He was all-state in multiple sports, played professional baseball, and coached several state champion high school football teams before returning to the University of Florida to pursue his master's in education. While there, he coached football and baseball and helped develop the Army Air Corps physical fitness program. His will to win and strength of character were honed in his early years of sports and competition and would guide him greatly in the years to follow.
I think that same energy and drive that he had in sports and athletics, both playing and coaching, were instrumental in him being so successful as a grower and a businessman.
When they made Bob Pitman, they threw away the mold. He was one of a kind. You never had any question where he stood on an issue, and he let you know that.
Shortly after receiving his master's degree in 1946, Bob left his coaching position at the University of Florida to join his father in the citrus business in Apopka, Florida. In 1948, he was instrumental in obtaining a patent on the Ponkan citrus fruit, a fancy variety of citrus that was developed by his father. Together, they developed Florida Ponkan Corporation, one of the largest and most influential citrus nurseries in the state of Florida at that time, and the only source of the ponkan tree for many years. During the winter of 1956, there was a prediction of a hard freeze in the central Florida area, and Bob decided to experiment with irrigation as a means of frost protection on his citrus nursery trees, which had not been done at that time.
Bob and I spent many a cold night together, and that was from the fact that he was protecting his nursery from freezes and I was gathering data to pass it on to other growers. Bob extrapolated the work that was done in ornamental nurseries into the citrus nursery, applying water to protect his trees. A few years later, growers said, hey, if it works in a nursery, can we get it to work in a grove? And from that standpoint, Bob was kind of the harbinger of using water for cold protection that is now the standard practice across the industry.
He put that entire, or a great portion of that entire nursery under heavy overhead irrigation and proved for the first time just how valuable that was for protecting a young, vulnerable citrus tree of that age.
By 1958, Bob saw the need to establish a professional group of citrus nurserymen in the state.
Well, I think it was the intensity he had and what he was learning in the process of operating this big nursery. He realized the tremendous importance of budwood problems in existence that was going on with all the diseases and viral transmissions at that time. So you got to give him a tremendous amount of credit for helping form the Florida Nurserymen's Association and getting everybody interested in starting that protection. You look back today and you realize just how important that beginning was.
Working through the Florida Citrus Nurserymen's Association, he pushed for the Florida Nurserymen to develop a Budwood Registration Program.
And at the time, people don't like to be regulated, so I'm sure it was a political battle, as it always is. But he had a lot of energy and a lot of drive, and he knew that it was important. And he was a nurseryman, and he was saying, I want to be regulated. We all should be regulated. It's for the good of the industry.
During the 1950s and 1960s, he worked with the University of Florida and the USDA to improve the quality of citrus in the state. Bob stayed on the cutting edge of these new developments, working to bring the new rootstocks and scions into production as swiftly as possible and making them available to the growers around the state. He changed and expanded his Apopka nursery operation to satisfy the growing demand for standard citrus varieties stimulated by the advent of concentrate. However, Bob was probably recognized most for his work in the political arena.
He knew the back alleys and the legislators' offices in Tallahassee and Washington, just as if a bird dog was tracking a quail.
I've seen him call my boss and say, I'll be there in 10 minutes, have me a check for $200 for a certain candidate. And in a few minutes he'd pull in, and I don't know how many $200 checks he picked up that day. He just was very active politically, and he had very good access all the way up and down the political spectrum.
For many years, Bob lobbied the Florida legislature to enact laws providing a property tax break for agricultural lands. The result was the Greenbelt law passed in 1959, in which properties that were bona fide agricultural operations were taxed according to their current use, rather than their potential use as commercial or residential properties.
There's a constant battle that we face today between urban areas that have lots of votes and rural agricultural people that have lots of land and few votes. So property taxes are very important. And he understood that if growers didn't protect themselves, that the urbanites would basically put us out of business, tax us out of business. And he was relentless in pursuit of getting those laws passed to protect farmers.
As a result of the Greenbelt law, over the 50-plus years since Bob's efforts, the Florida citrus grower has been able to save untold dollars in reduced taxes. However, his true passion was the sea, and he used his passion to woo friends and foes alike to his causes through numerous fishing trips from his home in Cape Canaveral on the Bobcats 1, 2, and 3.
I remember one Monday morning in the coffee shop in Apopka that some of the people that were on the boat with him were laughing that he had a group of legislators out. And he had an issue that he wanted them to support. And he got everybody except one to support it. And he refused to come in at the end of the day until that guy agreed to support it. And before it was over, the other legislators where everybody on the boat was riding the hole out. And he finally agreed that he would support it. And the ironic thing is that when they got on land and then the issue came up in the session, he did support it, because once you committed to pitch, you didn't change your mind.
Selected for both the Florida Agricultural Hall of Fame and the University of Florida Athletic Hall of Fame in 1982, Bob Pitman contributed his time and energy to numerous organizations.
I remember most about Bob was that if you weren't prepared when you met him, his handshake would put you on the ground. The guy had the most powerful handshake, and it was just, I think, represented all there was about Bob Pitman. Nothing was done in a slow manner, easy going. He was wide open all the way, from a handshake all the way to dealing with legislators. The guy was truly a winner.
If you take the three key words that comes out of my thoughts on Bob Pitman: kindness, generosity, and probably underlying intensity about 9 times for everything he did.
He was a leader. Without question, he was a leader. And that's probably what we need more of today.
He was well known, well respected. I think he contributed an awful lot. He did it unselfishly. I don't know that I've ever heard him ask for anything for him, but it was an industry thing. It was always where he came from.
He had a character and an honor about him that absolutely cannot be exceeded. A lot of people parallel him, but few could exceed him. He did what was right in all occasions. He was a rough-shod individual, but when push comes to shove and doing what was right, you could always count on Pitt being in the right place at the right time, saying the right thing and doing the right thing.
Regarded by his peers as the voice of agriculture, Bob Pitman's contributions resonate throughout the industry to this day, and it is truly an honor to welcome him as a member of the Florida Citrus Hall of Fame.